Have you ever felt completely invisible to the person you love most? That feeling of invisibility isn't just in your head, it's actually your partner's defense mechanism working exactly as designed. Right now, as you're trying to figure out how to get closer to them, they're unconsciously calculating how to maintain just enough distance to feel safe. Every conversation feels like you're speaking different languages. Every attempt at intimacy gets deflected, and every day that passes makes you feel more like a stranger in your own relationship. The moment when you finally work up the courage to tell them you need more closeness, and they immediately shut down, change the subject, or worse, agree to give you what you want, but then deliver it with all the enthusiasm of someone completing a work assignment. You're about to discover that the words you choose, the timing you pick, and even your tone of voice can mean the difference between getting genuine intimacy and pushing them further into their shell. Right now, you're probably making one critical mistake that guarantees failure before you even open your mouth. You're asking for closeness when their nervous system is already on high alert. You're using words that sound reasonable to you but translate as pressure and obligation to them. You're approaching the conversation with an energy that screams, "I need something from you," instead of, "I want to create something with you." The most devastating part is that you're probably asking at the worst possible moments, when you're feeling distant, when you're emotionally charged, when you're already frustrated by their avoidance. This timing ensures that your request lands like an accusation rather than an invitation. They hear criticism disguised as a need, and their brain immediately starts planning an escape route. But there's something even more crucial that determines whether your request succeeds or fails: how you frame what you're asking for. Most people make the mistake of asking for abstract concepts like more closeness, or better communication, or emotional intimacy. To an avoidant person, these words might as well be in a foreign language. They don't know what closeness looks like. They can't measure better communication, and emotional intimacy feels like being asked to perform surgery without training. Instead of asking for these vague concepts, you need to ask for specific, concrete actions that feel manageable and non-threatening. But even more importantly, you need to ask in a way that makes them feel like they're choosing to give rather than being forced to comply. This is where most people completely miss the mark. They think being direct and clear is the solution, when actually it's the problem. The first rule of asking an avoidant for closeness is never to use the word need. The moment you say, "I need more time together," or "I need you to open up more," their brain translates that as, "You're failing me," and "You're not enough as you are." Instead, you want to use language that focuses on what you'd enjoy creating together, not what's currently missing. Here's what actually works. "I've been thinking about how much I enjoy our conversations when we're both relaxed. I'd love to have more of those moments together." Notice how this doesn't point out what they're not doing wrong, doesn't make demands, and frames the request as something positive you want to create rather than a problem that needs fixing. The second critical element is timing. Never ask for closeness when either of you is stressed, tired, or already feeling disconnected. Avoidant people need to feel emotionally safe before they can even consider being vulnerable. The best time to make these requests is when they're already feeling good about the relationship, when you've just had a positive interaction, when their guard is naturally down. This means you need to become strategic about creating the right conditions before you ever bring up what you want. Spend time doing activities they enjoy without making any emotional demands. Show appreciation for the ways they already connect with you, even if it's not enough. Build up their confidence in the relationship before asking them to stretch beyond their comfort zone. The third game-changing strategy is to ask for one specific thing at a time, not a complete relationship overhaul. If you want more physical affection, don't ask for more intimacy. Instead, try something like, "I love it when you put your arm around me while we're watching TV. That always makes me feel so connected to you." This gives them a clear, actionable way to make you happy, without feeling overwhelmed by pressure to become a completely different person. When you make your request, your energy and tone matter more than your actual words. Avoidant people are incredibly sensitive to any hint of desperation, neediness, or pressure. They can sense when someone is asking from a place of lack versus asking from a place of abundance. If you approach them when you're feeling insecure or frustrated, they'll pick up on that energy immediately and their defenses will go up. You want to ask from a place of genuine curiosity and invitation, not from a place of trying to fix something broken. This might mean working on yourself first, getting to a place where you feel secure enough in yourself that you can make requests without attachment to the outcome. Paradoxically, the less you need their agreement, the more likely they are to say yes. Another crucial technique is to always give them an easy way to say no or to offer alternatives. Avoidant people hate feeling trapped by requests, so building in escape routes actually makes them more likely to engage. Try saying something like, "If that doesn't work for you, maybe we could figure out something else that would feel good for both of us." This removes the pressure and makes them feel like they have agency in the decision. You also need to pay attention to how you respond when they do give you what you've asked for. Avoidant people are watching to see if their efforts will be met with more demands or with genuine appreciation. If they give you a little more physical affection and you immediately ask for even more, they'll learn that satisfying your requests only leads to bigger requests. Instead, make sure to acknowledge and appreciate any movement in your direction, no matter how small. The most powerful approach is to focus on creating positive experiences together rather than trying to extract emotional performances from them. Instead of asking them to share their feelings more, invite them to do activities where natural sharing might occur. Instead of requesting deeper conversations, create environments where deeper conversations happen organically, like long drives, walks, or shared projects. Remember that avoidant people often express love through actions rather than words, through practical support rather than emotional declarations. When you ask for closeness, make sure you're not accidentally dismissing the ways they're already showing love while asking them to show it in ways that feel unnatural to them. The biggest breakthrough comes when you realize that asking for closeness isn't really about the asking. It's about creating a relationship dynamic where closeness feels safe and desirable rather than threatening and obligatory. This means becoming the kind of person they want to be close to, not because you're perfect, but because being with you enhances their life rather than complicating it. The moment that changes everything is when you discover the single most powerful phrase that disarms their defenses completely. But before I reveal that, you need to understand why everything you've tried so far has backfired so spectacularly. Most people approach avoidant partners like they're dealing with someone who simply doesn't know how to be close. So they explain, they educate, they demonstrate what intimacy looks like. What they don't realize is that avoidant people already know exactly what closeness looks like. They're just terrified of what happens after they give it to you. Their biggest fear isn't intimacy itself, it's the inevitable moment when their intimacy isn't enough, when you ask for more, when they disappoint you despite their best efforts. So when you ask for closeness, their brain immediately fast-forwards to the future scenario where they've failed to meet your expectations and you're hurt or angry or pulling away. This is why the traditional approach of explaining your needs and asking them to meet those needs is guaranteed to fail. You're essentially asking them to sign up for a performance they're convinced they'll eventually bomb. But there's a way to flip this script entirely. The phrase that changes everything is this: "I'm curious about something, and there's no wrong answer." This magical combination of words does three things simultaneously. It removes pressure by explicitly stating there's no wrong answer. It appeals to their intellect rather than demanding emotional vulnerability, and it positions you as genuinely interested in their perspective rather than trying to change them. Here's how this works in practice. Instead of saying, "We need to spend more quality time together," you say, "I'm curious about something, and there's no wrong answer. What does quality time feel like to you?" Instead of, "You never tell me how you're feeling," try, "I'm curious about something, and there's no wrong answer. How do you prefer to process your thoughts when you've had a tough day?" This approach works because it transforms you from someone making demands into someone seeking to understand them better. Avoidant people are much more willing to share information about themselves than they are to meet emotional expectations. They'll tell you how they experience connection much more readily than they'll demonstrate it on command. But here's where most people mess this up. They use this technique to gather intelligence about how to get what they want, rather than genuinely seeking to understand how their partner experiences the world. Avoidant people have incredibly sensitive radar for manipulation, and if they sense you're asking questions just to build a case for why they should change, they'll shut down immediately. The real power comes when you use their answers to meet them where they are, rather than trying to drag them to where you want them to be. If they tell you that quality time for them is doing activities side by side rather than talking face to face, stop asking for deep conversations and start suggesting projects you can work on together. If they share that they process emotions better through physical activity than through talking, invite them on walks when they seem stressed instead of trying to get them to sit down and open up. This is the part that most people find hardest to accept. Getting closeness from an avoidant person often means completely redefining what closeness looks like. You might be craving verbal affirmations of love, but they might show love by fixing things around the house or remembering your coffee order perfectly. You might want long talks about feelings, but they might connect better through shared experiences or comfortable silence. The breakthrough moment comes when you stop trying to get them to love you in your language and start learning to recognize love in theirs. This doesn't mean settling for less. It means expanding your definition of intimacy to include the ways they naturally express care and connection. Once you understand their natural intimacy style, you can start making requests that work with their wiring instead of against it. If they connect through shared activities, ask for more adventures together rather than more heart-to-heart talks. If they show love through practical support, ask them to teach you something or help you with a project rather than asking them to verbally express their feelings. The most effective requests are the ones that allow them to give you closeness while still feeling competent and comfortable. Avoidant people hate feeling emotionally incompetent, so the more you can frame your requests as opportunities for them to share their strengths rather than work on their weaknesses, the better your chances of success. There's another crucial element that determines whether your requests land well. You need to demonstrate that you already see and appreciate the ways they currently show love. Before asking for anything additional, spend time acknowledging what they're already giving you. I love how you always make sure my car has gas, or I really appreciate how you remember the little things that matter to me, or it means so much when you include me in your plans with friends. This acknowledgement serves two purposes. It reassures them that you're not completely dissatisfied with the relationship, and it shows them that their efforts are noticed and valued. Many avoidant people are already giving love in ways that go unrecognized, and they become even more withdrawn when they feel like their contributions don't matter. When you do make a request, always connect it to something they're already doing well. I love how comfortable we are together when we're watching movies. I'd love to have that same comfortable feeling when we're out exploring new places together. This frames your request as an expansion of existing strengths rather than a criticism of current limitations. The timing of your request matters enormously. Never ask for more closeness during or immediately after conflict, when they're already feeling defensive or overwhelmed. The best time is when they've just done something that made you feel connected. That's when they're most open to the idea that intimacy can be positive and rewarding rather than stressful and demanding. You also need to be prepared for their requests to be declined, delayed, or modified, and to respond to those responses gracefully. Avoidant people often need time to process emotional requests, so "let me think about that" isn't a rejection. It's actually a sign that they're taking your request seriously enough to consider it carefully. When they do say no or suggest an alternative, resist the urge to negotiate or convince them. Instead, express appreciation for their honesty and ask if there's something else that might work better for both of you. This shows them that your goal is mutual satisfaction rather than getting your way at any cost. The most powerful long-term strategy is to create a pattern where closeness leads to positive outcomes for both of you rather than more pressure and expectations. Every time they give you what you've asked for, make sure the experience enhances their life too. If you ask for more date nights, choose activities they genuinely enjoy rather than just activities that create the kind of intimacy you want. Remember that building trust with an avoidant person is like making deposits in a very cautious bank account. Every positive experience where they risk closeness and it goes well adds to their willingness to risk it again. Every time closeness leads to pressure, criticism, or demands for even more closeness makes a withdrawal from that account. The most shocking discovery you'll make is that the secret to getting closeness from an avoidant person has nothing to do with asking at all. It's about creating irresistible invitations that they actually want to accept rather than feel obligated to fulfill. Think about the difference between being invited to a party you're excited about versus being guilted into attending a family gathering you're dreading. Same basic request, spend time with people, but completely different emotional experience. When you ask an avoidant person for closeness, you want them to feel like they're being invited to the party, not dragged to the family obligation. This means completely flipping your approach from focusing on what you're missing to focusing on what you're offering. Instead of, "We never talk anymore," try, "I have something interesting I want to share with you." Instead of, "You seem distant lately," try, "I was thinking about that conversation we had last week and I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on it." The difference is subtle but crucial. The first approach points out what's wrong and implies they need to fix it. The second approach offers them something valuable: your attention, your interest, your desire to understand their perspective better. Avoidant people are much more likely to engage when they feel like they're receiving something rather than being asked to provide something. There's also a specific way to phrase requests that makes them feel collaborative rather than demanding. Instead of, "I need you to be more affectionate," try, "I wonder if we could experiment with showing appreciation for each other in different ways." Instead of, "You need to open up more," try, "I'm interested in understanding how you prefer to share what's on your mind." The word experiment is particularly powerful because it removes the pressure of permanent change and frames the request as curiosity rather than criticism. It also implies that you're willing to participate and potentially change too, rather than expecting them to do all the adjusting. Another game-changing technique is to make requests that actually make their life easier or more enjoyable rather than more complicated. Most people ask avoidant partners to do more work, more talking, more sharing, more emotional labor. But what if you could ask for closeness in ways that actually reduced their stress or added pleasure to their life? For example, instead of asking them to share their feelings more, you could ask if they'd like you to check in with them less frequently so they have more space to process things internally before sharing. This shows that you understand their need for autonomy while still opening the door for them to share when they're ready. Or instead of asking for more date nights, you could ask if they'd like to establish a regular activity together that requires minimal planning or decision-making. Many avoidant people are overwhelmed by the constant negotiations that relationships require, so offering to simplify some aspect of your connection can actually create more intimacy. The most advanced technique is learning to ask for closeness by asking for their help or expertise rather than asking for emotional vulnerability. Avoidant people often feel much more comfortable being useful than being emotionally available. "I'm struggling with something at work, and I'd really value your perspective," can create more meaningful connection than, "Tell me about your day." This works because it positions them as competent and valuable rather than deficient and needing to improve. It also gives them a specific role to play rather than asking them to figure out how to be intimate on the spot. Many avoidant people are much more comfortable connecting through problem-solving or sharing knowledge than through emotional exchange. When you make any request, you need to be genuinely prepared for them to say no, and you need to respond to that no in a way that actually increases intimacy rather than decreasing it. This might sound counterintuitive, but how you handle rejection is often more important than how you make requests in the first place. If they decline your invitation for closeness, thank them for being honest about their capacity rather than trying to change their mind. Express appreciation that they trusted you enough to say no, rather than agreeing and then resenting it later. This builds safety around honest communication, which is the foundation of all genuine intimacy. You can also ask if there's something else that might work better for them, but only if you're genuinely open to their alternatives rather than trying to negotiate your way back to your original request. Avoidant people need to feel like they have agency in how closeness happens, not just whether it happens. The most powerful long-term strategy is to become someone who makes their life better rather than more complicated. This doesn't mean suppressing your needs or becoming a people pleaser. It means finding ways to meet your needs for connection that also enhance their experience of the relationship. Pay attention to what naturally energizes them versus what drains them, and try to ask for closeness in ways that align with their natural rhythms and preferences. If they're more open in the morning, don't wait until bedtime to have important conversations. If they connect better through activities than through talking, suggest doing things together rather than just talking together. Remember that consistency matters more than intensity with avoidant people. They'd rather have small, predictable amounts of closeness than dramatic emotional experiences followed by long periods of distance. This means asking for less more often rather than asking for everything all at once. One of the most effective approaches is to create rituals and routines that build in the closeness you want, rather than having to ask for it repeatedly. Maybe it's a weekly walk where you both share one thing that's on your mind. Maybe it's a daily 5-minute check-in while you're making coffee. Maybe it's a monthly adventure where you try something new together. The key is to propose these rituals as experiments that you can modify or discontinue if they don't work for both of you. This removes the pressure of committing to something forever and gives them permission to shape the ritual to fit their comfort level. Finally, the most important thing to remember is that asking for closeness is just the beginning. How you receive and respond to the closeness they give you determines whether they'll be willing to give it again. Make sure that when they do step out of their comfort zone for you, the experience is rewarding for them too. This might mean managing your own expectations and appreciating small steps rather than immediately asking for more. It might mean expressing gratitude in ways that feel meaningful to them rather than just in ways that feel natural to you. It might mean recognizing that their version of closeness might look different from what you imagined, but can be just as valuable. The ultimate goal isn't to turn your avoidant partner into someone who expresses love exactly the way you do. It's to create a relationship where both of your natural styles of connection are valued and where both of you feel safe enough to stretch slightly beyond your comfort zones for each other. When you get this balance right, you won't need to ask for closeness because they'll start offering it freely. Have you tried these approaches with your avoidant partner and noticed how different language can completely change their response? Share in the comments what techniques worked best for you and which conversations led to breakthrough moments. If this helped you understand how to request closeness without triggering their defenses, like this video and subscribe for more strategies about building deeper connection with avoidant attachment styles. Thanks for watching.